Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Flashback, Masha, the evening. Louise described me as a chiropractor. I was not familiar with the word, so I asked, "What is a chiropractor?" Gwen replied, "They are sort of like doctors who adjust your back, like you did to ours." Louise added, "However, I've never known any of them to do a foot massage." Gwen reached around, touched her back, and remarked, "Yes, that was almost better than getting my back cracked. Where did you learn to do foot massages?" I smiled at them and said, "I spent some time in Japan and was taught the method there." Louise's eyes grew big, and she remarked, "Wow, my Auntie Masha is a world traveler. Where else have you been?" I really couldn't tell them, so I redirected the topic. "Were we planning on a movie tonight?" Gwen looked at her watch and remarked, "I need to get going, but have fun with your movie." Louise said, "See you at work tomorrow." And Gwen was gone. I reiterated about the movie. "Are we having a movie tonight?" Louise sat at the kitchen table and asked, "Masha, I would like to just spend some time talking tonight if you don't mind." I replied, "Of course I don't mind. Please tell me, Louise, what is on your mind?" Louise walked to the refrigerator, pulled out a bottle of wine, brought over 2 glasses, poured each of us a glass, sat back down and started, "Masha, you've done so much for me, so I'm not sure I know how to ask you for this favor." I smiled at her and in a calm manner said, "Don't worry about it, Louise. The worst I can do is say no." Louise bit her lower lip and asked, "Masha, what would you think about me taking some classes at the local community college?" I grinned at her and replied, "I think that would be a great idea." Louise interrupted, "Masha, you haven't heard the bad part. Because of my job schedule, the classes would have to be at night." I put Louise at ease. "Yes, Louise, I realized that when you asked. You would of course want me to watch Linda for you." Louise said, "Yes, Masha, I don't have anyone else in the world except you. So now that you've heard everything, what do you think?" I smiled at her, replied and asked, "I think it's a great idea. Do you have the money to attend school?" Louise said, "Oh yeah, they have a program at work which will pay for much of it if I have good grades and take the right classes." I asked, "So when does this start?" Louise answered, "In 3 weeks." I said, "Louise, this will probably put a stop to your Krav Maga lessons since I'm not sure how you will have time for everything as it is." Louise agreed, "Yeah, Masha, I will be busy. I just hope I can stay in touch with Linda." I replied, "Don't worry, I will make sure she doesn't forget her mother." Louise hugged me and said, "Masha, you're the best aunt a girl could ever have." Flashback, Ben, the striker mission. Once I put the mercs in the right position to establish a perimeter, the agents exited the striker. I pointed to a pile of rubble and said, "That's what is left of the building we identified as the bomb maker's HQ." The second agent began to comb through the rubble and announced, "Your artillery did a hell of a job. But like I hoped, there are some small components they didn't destroy. Sergeant, will you please assist me?" I walked over to the second agent, noticed he was screwing with some wires, took a close look at it, and ordered, "Sir, I would stop messing with that. Unless I'm mistaken, you found a live suicide vest." He slowly released the bundle of wires and carefully walked backwards. When he had retreated to what he felt was a safe distance from the suicide vest, he thanked me. "Sergeant, thanks for keeping me from blowing myself up." The main agent came over and added, "Yes, thank you, Sergeant, for keeping all of us from being blown to hell." He looked to the second agent and ordered, "Get on the horn and call in an explosive ordnance disposal team. I want this vest intact." The second agent came out and said, "Sergeant, the hospital wants to talk to you." I stepped into the striker just as all hell broke loose. I picked up the radio. It was George and I suggested, "Sir, we're beginning to take a hellacious amount of fire. How about getting the sniper team on it?" George replied, "No problem, SGT." I turned around and noticed that not only were the agents in the striker, the mercs had followed them. I shook my head and complained, "What the hell are you four doing in here?" The leader said, "We were being shot at, so I told everyone to haul into the striker." I asked, "Didn't you think the scumsuckers would use your retreat to overrun the striker?" He replied, "Hey, it's a striker. What the hell can they do to cause any damage?" I swore, "They can blow out of it if they get close enough. Now follow me as we keep the scumsuckers from doing that." He laughed. "I have never heard of the scumsuckers taking down a striker." He no sooner got the words out of his mouth than there was a huge explosion that lifted the left side of the striker into the air. The driver yelled to the back, "They took out the tires on the left side of the striker, so we're not going anywhere." The agents begin to scramble on the radio to get a new striker here while I glare at the mercs and ordered, "We need to get our butts outside and set up a perimeter until help arrives." I lead the way to the door, checked outside, pointed to one of the mercs, and ordered, "You take that position while we cover you." We laid down suppressive fire. He hauled and made it to the little piece of wall for cover. I directed the other 4 mercs where I wanted them, and then I took up a position. Between our fire, I heard fire coming from the hospital, and it made me feel good, especially when I heard the Barrett 50 bark. We were doing well until one of the mercs yelled, "I'm out." Then a second yelled the same. I swore, what sort of idiots did I have here? They didn't even have enough ammo to finish this short firefight. I pulled an extra mag out of my vest, tossed it to the first one, and said, "You're welcome." He threw it back and complained, "We're using 6.8, not .223. I swore, "Do you scumsuckers have any more ammo in the striker?" He yelled back, "No, we only brought what we thought we would need." I ordered, "Then use your sidearm and continue fighting." He asked, "What happens when I run out of ammo for it?" I complained, "Then you pull your knife and fight them with it." Finally, a helicopter gunship came in, and then the battle was over almost as fast as it started. I walked inside the striker and told the agents, "There's no way in hell I'm becoming a merc for you guys. You're lucky as hell I was here, otherwise you'd have had your heads chopped off." The lead agent said, "But these guys were supposed to be some of our best." I interrupted, "Your best didn't bring enough ammo for this short firefight and used weapons that weren't a standard caliber so I could resupply them. But the worst thing they did was hide in this striker and let the scumsuckers blow it to hell. They aren't even fit to be Army, which means they're not even close to being Marines." The lead agent asked, "How about if we gave you 100K a year?" I laughed at him and said, "You guys didn't do your homework on me very well if you think that money will entice me to become a merc. I have more money than Carter has little pills. No, I'll happily stay a Marine, and there's nothing you can do about it." A Blackhawk chopper did a touch and go while one guy bailed out. I said, "My guess is your EOD man is finally here." I went outside, met him, and took him close to where the vest was. He looked at the striker and said, "Damn, you guys are lucky you didn't die in that one. It looks like they put 4 IEDs under the left side of the striker. How the hell did that happen?" I liked the hell out of this guy, so I said, "The mercs were hiding in the striker instead of keeping a perimeter." He asked, "How about now?" I replied, "We have a perimeter, but the mercs are low on ammo." He said, "I wondered why they kicked a big box of ammo out of the chopper." I smiled at him and ordered the mercs, "Your ammo is over there." One of them hauled to the ammo, opened it up, and began to resupply the others. We walked up to the vest. I pointed to the bunch of wires and said, "I think that's the vest." He knelt, looked at it, and commended, "Good eyes, Sergeant, you are right. This is an active suicide vest. Help me into my gear, and then get the hell away from here." As I helped him into his EOD suit, I asked, "What's your name?" He said, "Michael." "And yours?" I replied, "My friends call me Ben." He nodded his head and replied, "I've heard of you. You're almost a legend now, I understand." He was suited up and suggested, "Why don't you take that area to help keep the perimeter?" I headed to where he pointed and made sure no scumsuckers bothered Michael. Flashback, Jack, concerned about Todd. "Damn, I no sooner finished the problem with Ben and another one took its place. How in the hell was I ever going to turn Todd into a Marine?" I do have to say, in some ways he was better than John because he did know how to requisition things, and he made a hell of a bed. Damn near as good as Ben's cheating bed. Ben used an old Marine military trick that I taught him, brag. He put safety pins on the sheets and blankets, then moved to the other side to pull them tight as hell, and then put safety pins on the side he was on. When he slept, he would use a couple blankets over the top, so in the morning all he had to do was smooth things out and occasionally tighten the safety pins. This is why the quarter would always bounce off his bed. I ordered Todd, "Stay here and make sure your footlocker and footwear are in good shape. I'm headed to the mess hall to talk with some of the other SGTS." He learned fast and replied correctly, "Yes, Sergeant, would you like for me to take care of your footlocker and shoes?" I figured what the hell, so I said, "Sure, knock yourself out." I headed to the mess hall, but unlike last time, this time I was a hero again. John offered me some food and I declined. "Sorry, John, all I want is some of the great coffee." John said, "Jack, we ran out of the General's coffee today, but I think you will like this coffee." I grabbed a cup, filled it up, noticed my other 2 sergeant friends were here, and headed to their table. I sat down and Rich said, "I saw you giving one of the new recruits shit on the obstacle course today." I looked at both of them and sighed. "That's what I came to talk to you 2 about. That new recruit was Todd and has no business being a Marine." Fernando interrupted, "Then send him the hell back home." I finished, "I wish that I could, but his father is a general. That's the only way he made it over here. My guess is he figured that the Marines would whip his son into shape. So do either of you have any ideas how to keep his but from being killed?" Rich looked at me and said, "Shit, Jack, you have one screwed up job. The only thing I can think of is if he deploys with you." Fernando agreed. "Yeah, Jack, if the 2 of you could get shipped to the hospital, you might stand a chance." Rich laughed and interrupted, "Not only that, if he did get wounded, you would be in the right place." I snapped my fingers and said, "Thanks guys, you gave me a hell of an idea. Now I just needed to talk Colonel Maggie into my harebrained idea." Flashback, Jennifer at home. We arrived at home in the taxi. Daniela met us at the door and said, Dios mío, Señor Donaldson and Señorita Jennifer, how is your mother? Daddy smiled and replied, I guess good luck was with us again. The doctor says that somehow she was healed. Daniela replied, Señor Donaldson, it was not luck. I have been praying for her since the ambulance left. Once again, El Señor has blessed your family. Daniela made the sign of the cross and continued, Are either of you hungry? Daddy laughed and said, I'm a little bit hungry, but Jennifer ate enough food at the hospital to choke a horse. Daniela made me laugh when she asked, Señor Donaldson, why would Señorita Jennifer wish to ahorcar a un caballo? I replied, Daniela, choke a horse is a euphemism. It stands for mucha comida. Daniela praised me but complained, Señorita Jennifer, you have been studying Spanish, but I must complain about you eating terrible hospital food. I slightly agreed while praising her cooking. Yes, Daniela, the food was not nearly as good as yours. I do hope I don't get sick from it. Daniela crossed herself again and stated, Señorita Jennifer, I will pray that El Señor keeps you well. Then Daniela asked, why didn't Señora Donaldson come home with you? Daddy began to hem-haw around, so I replied, Daniela, they kept her at the hospital to run more tests on her heart and her head. Daniela gave us a grave look and asked, Señora Donaldson's head? What is wrong with her head? I couldn't resist, so I told Daniela. Mother kept telling everyone I was a witch. Daniela laughed, Señora Donaldson, must be un pequeño loco if she called a good girl like you a bruja. I smiled at her, but kept my real secret about how we are healed in this family. Flashback, Alexei, fishing. We finally made it to the river and I asked Father, are we going to stop somewhere to get some bait? Father confessed, Alexei, I hadn't even thought about bait, but you're right, we need to get some worms. We stopped at a little store and went inside where Father asked, do you sell bait here? The proprietor replied, we have many kinds of bait here, worms, smelt, cheese and fish eggs. Which would you like? Father said, I think we will just use worms for now. The proprietor went to a small refrigerator, removed a paper container which said worms and asked, now you do have a fishing license, don't you? Father replied with surprise, a fishing license? I didn't know he needed one. He pointed to me and replied, he's young enough that he won't need one. However, you will certainly need one. Father asked, how about if I just assist my son fish? The proprietor shook his head and replied, no, sir. If you don't have a license, then your boy can't fish. Father paid for the fishing license and the worms. I walked up with an armload of food which I asked to purchase. Father, I'm still hungry. Father paid for the additional food. We walked out to the car and Father remarked, I didn't know fishing would be so expensive. I smiled at Father and said, don't worry, Father, we will be eating fish for dinner tonight. We found a little spot alongside the creek. Father took out the fishing gear and began to get things ready. I asked, can I help? Father replied, please hold the pole while I put the worm on the hook. I held the pole and he started the worm on the hook. I heard a noise behind me, turned to see what it was, and Father screamed, Alexei, you have hooked me. I turned back, saw that the hook was deep inside Father's finger, and said, sorry, Father. I heard a noise behind me. Please tell me you can remove the hook, and we can keep fishing. Father said, Alexei, a little problem like this won't stop us. I will leave this hook in my finger and remove it later at home. Until then, I will use a new hook. This time remember to stay still while you are holding the fishing pole. I listened to Father this time and did not hook him, even though I still heard some noises behind us. My fishing pole was ready. Father took it from me and showed me how to cast the line out into the stream. We watched as the bobber on the line floated downstream. When it got close to the shore, Father reeled the line back in and cast again. I asked Father, do you think I can try to cast it next time? Father replied, I don't know, Alexei. It's not as easy as it looks. I pouted a little and Father relented. Okay, Alexei, next time you can try a cast. I quickly reeled in the line, messed with the reel the way Father did, whipped the fishing pole, and did what I thought Father did. But I must have done something wrong because the bobber flew all the way across the river and landed in some rocks. I apologized. Sorry, Father, I guess I don't know how to do it. Father suggested, Alexei, when we get home, I will put a practice weight on the line and you can practice casting. I clapped my hands and cheered, and Father cautioned, Alexei, noise like that will scare away all the fish. I pulled on the line, but it wouldn't move, so I complained, Father, I think it's stuck. Father came over, pulled on the line, and swore, come on, you son of a bitch. He gave it one big yank. It came free and flew across the creek toward us. I ducked, but the hook hit Father in the neck, and he swore, son of a bitch. Now I've hooked myself. I commented, Father, fishing seems like it's dangerous. He said, I never remember having this many problems fishing before. I dejectedly sat down and said, Father, I'm sure it's me. Bad luck seems to find me everywhere. Look at what happened at the laboratory. That was all my fault. Father scolded me, Alexei, that's not true. There have always been some problems at the laboratory. I countered. Father, that's not true. We didn't have any problems with Chow Mein until she came to live with me. Father said, Alexei, Chow Mein and the love your mother gave her was always a problem. Now help me put a new hook on this line. I opened the little snap thing and slipped it off the line connected to the old hook, and Father praised, good job, Alexei. I will need a mirror to take this hook out of my neck. So we will do this at home. He put a new hook on the line, put a worm on the hook, and cast the line into the creek. I told Father, one of these days I will learn how to do that. We again watched the bobber, and this time as it got close to the wood it began to bounce up and down. Father excitedly said, Alexei, a fish is biting the hook, pull on the line. I grabbed the line with my hand, pulled hard on it, and screamed as the line was pulled through my hand, cutting it. I dropped the fishing pole, and Father grabbed toward it as the fish took the pole into the creek. Father swore, that son of a bitch. I interrupted. Father, why are you using so many bad words today? Father apologized. Sorry, Alexei. I guess fishing isn't as much fun as I remember. I confessed. Father, I'm not having any fun either. Perhaps we should go home. But could we stop by the store again? I'm hungry. Father agreed. That's an excellent idea. We headed to the store, walked in. The proprietor took one look at my father and said, it looks like you had some problems. Why don't you let me get those hooks out of you? Father replied, that would be great. I tried pulling them out the way they came in, and it didn't work. The proprietor replied, yeah, to take a hook out, you have to push it all the way through and then cut off the barb on the end. I remarked, that sounds like it hurts. The proprietor replied, you're right, Sonny, it hurts like hell. He handed a bottle to my father and suggested, take a couple good snorts of this. We'll give it about 10 minutes to work on you, and then I will remove the hooks. Father took about 3 good snorts on the bottle and waited. The proprietor came over, looked at Father, and announced, it looks like you're ready. He looked at me and suggested, you might not want to watch this. I challenged, oh no, I want to watch so when this happens next time we go fishing I can do it. He started on the hook in Father's neck, pushed it all the way through, while Father made some bad noises. Then he took a tool and cut the barb off. Once the barb was gone, he easily pulled the hook out. The one in Father's finger was easier, and Father didn't make as many bad noises. Once the proprietor finished, he asked, you don't go fishing much, do you? Father replied, this is the very first time with my son, and I haven't gone fishing for years. The proprietor suggested, you know, we have a little fishing class for beginners that might be great for you and your son. Father began to say no when I said, I think that would be wonderful. We did catch a fish today, but he took our fishing pole when he did this to my hand. I held out my hand. The proprietor looked at it and said, Sonny, we need to put a bandage on that hand. How did this happen? I replied, Father told me to pull on the line, so I grabbed the line with my hand, and then it slipped through my hand and cut it. He gave Father a dirty look and said, I think your father should have given you a little instruction before you came out here to fish. But don't worry, come to the class and we will teach you everything. I excitedly asked, even how to throw the bait. The proprietor replied, that's called casting, and we will make you an expert at it. He finished with my hand and said, now, I will see both of you next Saturday. On the way home, Father asked, Alexei, are you sure you want to take this fishing class? I enthusiastically replied, yes, Father, I really do. Flashback, Ira and Mira, continuing. Mira commented, sister, it is a shame that we do not have a Baltica beer to go with this excellent dried fish. I complained, Mira, I feel after yesterday you have partaken of enough alcoholic beverages and have become dipsomaniac. Mira counter-complained, my sister, it was you who was a dipsomaniac last night. You did not even recognize my walking couch. There was no sense talking with my sister Mira when she was like this. I continued to enjoy my dried fish and checked my interior accoutrements to verify they were practically dry. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. I walked into the kitchen to make a cup of coffee, looked at it and realized that with the distraction of Maria and Gail, I had forgotten to purchase the items for the kitchen. Damn, what were we going to do now about eating and cooking for today? To add further insult to the situation, my stomach growled and confirmed I was hungry. Yeah, perhaps I shouldn't have sold everything in the kitchen to the realtor because she literally took everything. Maria walked in, this time in a decent one-piece swimsuit, spun around and asked, do you like this better? I evilly signed, no, I like the other one better, but only for my viewing and for selfish reasons. Then I added, we have a problem because there is nothing in the kitchen. Maria smiled and said, don't worry, Roberto will be back soon with some food from his restaurant. Then he said we can go shopping for the kitchen and other rooms. I signed other rooms. Maria laughed and said, I guess you forgot. You sold the furniture out of the master bedroom and the bedroom Gail is using. We need to replace those items unless we're all sleeping in your bedroom tonight. I quickly signed, Maria, while I would like you to sleep with me, There is no way I want Gail in my bed. Maria grinned and said, I know, Todd. It's just that you're so much fun to tease. Roberto showed up with the food, and I asked, I thought you had to work today? Maria translated, and Roberto said, I talked to my boss, and she told me to take some time to make sure you were settled in. Gail flew into the kitchen and rapidly signed, food. I thought I smelled food. Maria translated. We all had a good laugh and began to eat lunch. Present, Ben, in the bedroom trying on his dress blues. I sure as hell didn't think I'd need my dress blues this soon. But like a good Marine, I made sure to pack them away correctly. Yeah, even though I hadn't been a Marine in years, the Corps training still stuck with me and of course with my wife Jens. The time I shared with her as a Marine was good, but was also too short, and I gave her too much shit about things. Yeah, she must really love me to put up with all the shit I dumped on her when we were Marines. I removed my dress blues from the storage bag, begin to put them on, and hell's bells, they are a little loose on me. How in the hell did I lose weight? Then it hits me. I lost weight. Jens was a hell of a sex machine, and I'd had more sex since I got married than I ever had in my life. Well, except for the crazy nurses in Iraq. My dress blues fit well enough. At least I didn't need to take them in any. I carefully packed them back in the storage bag and put them into the closet. I pulled the M4 out of the drag bag, put it in the scabbard on my side of the bed, and filled the mag pouches with the extra mags. I put the M1014 in the scabbard on Jens' side of the bed and loaded up 4 bandoliers with various shotgun rounds. I changed back into my BDUs, put my 1911 in 10mm on my hip, and now I was ready. Then I remember something, pick up the phone, and Gretchen asks, do you need an outside line? I reply, yes, and I'd like it to be private. Gretchen answers, no problem, here you go. I figure this is some sort of new security protocol like Tom told us about at the gate. I make a call to place the order, and on hearing what I want, the dealer at the other end asks, are you sure about this? This is going to cost a lot of money. I laugh and tell him, no problem, here's my charge card number. When I give him my name, he interrupts. Hey, I know you. I'm glad you told me your name because you get a Marine discount. I thank him and ask, thanks for the discount. When do you think they will arrive? He pauses for a moment and says, probably a couple weeks. I will let you know if it will take longer. Do you have a mobile phone? That reminds me about Gretchen destroying ours, so I say, not right now, but I will have one soon and I will call you with it. Until then, use this landline number. I hang up the call and decide I need to get a new mobile phone, so I wander to the control room. Gretchen is there and I ask, when can I get a new mobile phone? She smiles and says, it's good to have you back, here's one for you now. She opens a drawer, pulls out a phone, hands it to me, and I complain, what sort of dinosaur phone is this? Gretchen replies, Ben, we can't use newer phones which use the Android operating system or have GPS transmitters in them. They are much too easy to hack and track. I continue with the complaints. Because this doesn't run Android, that means I can't install Shooter or Strelic on it. Gretchen asks, what are those programs and what do they do? I tell her, they are programs that I use with my rifle that give me targeting information, like hold over and windage. They are essential to me. Gretchen thinks for a moment and asks, can you use a tablet for the programs? I reply, I could, but they are bigger and bulkier. It was nice having the programs on my phone. Gretchen continues the questions. Can you use a phone without an internet connection? I reply, I would need the internet occasionally, initially to download and install the programs and retrieve the data I have saved on the servers. After that, I would only need it when I wanted to update the server information. Jens walks into the control room and asks, present, Jens and others in the control room. I can tell my Ben is upset about something, so Sharik and I walk up and I ask, Ben, what's wrong? Ben holds up a brick mobile phone and complains, Jens, these are supposed to be our new mobile phones and it's not going to work for me. Gretchen requests, Jens, can you please explain to Ben how easy it is to hack one of the newer Android phones? I take Ben's hand and say, she's right, honey. The newer phones are easy to hack. We need to use these phones for now until the threat is over. Gretchen suggests, Ben, you could use a newer phone for your programs, and then we could disable the GPS and internet connection. Ben reluctantly agrees. Okay, if that's what I have to do, but I sure as hell don't like it. Mira and Ira walk in and Ira asks, what is it that you do not like? I hold up the thing that's supposed to be the phone and complain, this is my replacement mobile phone. It doesn't run Android, so I can't install Shooter or Strelic. Ira begins the complaint, Gretchen, this is not acceptable. Those two programs are essential. Mira finishes, to our duties as bodyguards. Jens suggests, Gretchen, it looks like we need to find some sort of solution that will work for Ben, Ira, and Mira. Ben tosses the brick phone on the desk and says, that's right, I'm not going to use this piece of shit phone. Gretchen says, okay, you three have made your point. I will look into a phone which runs Android, supports those two applications, and can be secured. Now that this crisis was averted, I ask Ben, how did your dress blues fit? Ben grins at me and says, Yince, I can't believe it, they were loose. I give Ben a strange look and declare, those dress blues were too tight at the wedding. How in the heck did you lose weight? Ben gives me an evil grin, leans close and whispers in my ear, Yince, the only thing I can think of is that you screwed it off of me. I pull back, begin to giggle, and Mira asks, Ms. Blaine, what has caused this display of mirth? Mr. Blaine's weight lose has been a concern for my sister and me. I look at them and ask, did you notice that Ben had lost weight? Mira replies, most certainly, we would estimate the loss of about 2 kilograms. I continue, and you didn't say anything about it? Ira states, no, Ms. Blaine, we assumed you also noticed his weight loss. I feel like a fool. Then Ben saves me. My weight fluctuates all the time, so a 5-pound loss is no big deal. But talking about this has made me hungry. Is Mabel around? I reply, of course she is, and has something which smells wonderful in the oven. Ben says, good, I think I will go and raid the kitchen. Ben leaves. Mira looks at me and admonishes, Ms. Blaine, where is your sidearm? I tell Mira, I haven't been to the room yet to pick it up. Mira suggests, perhaps Ira and I will accompany you to the room to make sure you're properly armed. I counter, girls, I can put a pistol on my hip as well as anyone can. Why don't you have a talk with Gretchen about the new security policies? Ira starts, Ms. Blaine, please do not traverse this domicile without your pistol. Mira finishes, otherwise we might have to give you a martial arts lesson. Gretchen pipes up, I would love some martial arts lessons. I tell Gretchen, I'm not sure you want them from the twins. They kicked my rear all over the mat, and I was black and blue for a week. Plus, I had to give both of them manipeds. The girls proudly hold up their hands and Ira taunts. Yes, it is close to time for another manicure and pedicure. Are you sure, Ms. Blaine, you do not wish a rematch? I deliver a challenge to them. It seems to me that Ben kicked both your rears last time, so why don't you ask him for a rematch? And if he wins this time, as I am sure he will, I want manipeds from you too as my reward. Gretchen says with surprise, wow, Ben beat both of you? I thought you two were unbeatable. Ira dismissively waves her hand and explains, Mr. Blaine knows several styles of martial arts to which we had never been exposed. Now that we understand he knows capoeira and Muay Thai, he will not so easily defeat us. I taunt the girls, don't forget, Ben says he knows one more martial arts technique he's never shown you. I think you two are chicken. Mira frowns and replies, Ms. Blaine, why would you call us poultry? Gretchen explains, Mira and Ira, calling someone chicken does not mean you are literally calling them a chicken. It means that Jennifer feels you are too afraid to fight Ben again. Mira shakes her head and complains, the continued use of these euphemisms is going to be our death. I giggle and tease, Mira, you just used an euphemism yourself. Mira counters, I most certainly did not. Gretchen comes to my rescue. Mira, you most certainly did when you implied that the continued use of euphemisms would kill you. That was an euphemism. Mira grins and admits, you know, perhaps I could see some value to the occasional use of euphemisms. Ira complains, Mira, do not become infatuated with their silly sayings. Mira sticks her tongue out at Ira and says, Ira, I will say whatever I wish. There is nothing you can do about it. Ira changes the subject and states, Mira, we must check on Alexei. I smile at the girls and advise, don't worry about it. Alexei is still fine. Why don't you go see him while Tom and I talk? Mira says, Ms. Blaine, we cannot depart your presence until you acquire a sidearm. Tom pulls a paddle holster from behind his back, hands it to me, and says, does this make the two of you happy? Ira states, we would prefer if it was a caliber greater than 9 millimeters. However, for now this will suffice. Come, my sister, it is time to visit our brother. The girls leave. I look at Tom and praise his work. Tom, you've done a heck of a job while we were gone. Tom replies, thanks, I usually ask myself many times a day WWJD. His statement confuses me and ask, you asked what would Jesus do? Tom laughs and says, hell no, I asked what would Jennifer do. I giggle and remark, I wish more people would ask that. Ben walks back into the control and says, ask what? I reply, WWJD. Ben looks confused until I provide the translation, what would Jennifer do? Ben teases, Jennifer would do as much do as a Jennifer could do. If a Jennifer could do. I pout a little and complain, hey, I'm not a woodchuck. Ben hugs me and says, that's right, you're my wife. I hug him back and continue, Ben, what would you think of making Tom our new head of security? Ben affirms my feelings when he says, he's done a hell of a job here already, and we do need a new head of security since I fired the old one. I guess the question is, can he work with the twins? Tom assures us, oh yeah, I can stay out of their way. I giggle, Ben laughs, and I say, that's one of the most important parts of working with them. Tom, you're hired. Present, Tom, in the control room. Well, that was easier than I ever dreamed it would be. I didn't really get the job I wanted. I really wanted to be Jennifer's assistant. But the head of security was a great job and meant I could go to town on the security for this place. The old head of security didn't know what the hell he was doing and left this place mostly wide open, security-wise. I had tightened it down some and had plans to do even more. I asked Ben, am I free to hire anyone I want? Ben replies, within reason. Jennifer adds, I don't want you to hire Susan back, because that was a terrible situation. That was something I considered, but it was good to know it was off the table. I ask, how would you feel if I hired Inga? Ben replies, I don't have a problem with that. Do you, my love? Jennifer adds, I think that would be a good thing, if you can talk her into it. I've heard she really likes working at the restaurant owned by the bitch who shot Ben. I remind her, you mean the bitch whose nose I bloodied? Jennifer laughs, yeah, that's the one. Ben asks, who the hell are you two talking about? Jennifer explains how I punched Stacy in the nose to Ben while I take off to call Inga. Present, Samantha and Stacy, back at Stacy's offices. My phone rings. I check and note it's Liz. I answer and ask, what can I do for you? Liz replies, Sam, Ben, and Jennifer are back. I thought you might want to come here and do a report on them. I cautiously, because I know the terrors watch my reports, reply, Liz, are you sure about this? Liz replies, hell yes, Sam. You can't stop reporting on them because of the terrors. Besides, I think that they have some choice words for the terrors. I reply, let me round up John, and we will be right over. Liz says, okay, Sam, I will call the gate and let them know you're coming. I wasn't sure what she meant with her last statement. I left my room to find John and then a van. Once again, my blue bugging of Sam's phone paid off. So Ben and his bitch were finally back at the tunnel's cabin. I took a different burner mobile phone, made some calls, and then destroyed the phone, just like the previous one. John, Vic and I take a van toward the Blaine's cabin, and I say, I've heard the security is higher than before, so be ready for anything. Vic replies, Miss Stevens, if I had my way we wouldn't even be going to the cabin. I think it's too great a danger. I counter, Vic, even though it might be a danger, I still need to do my job. Vic counters, you do realize the terrors use your reports to garner information on the Blaines? I reply, from what I understand, Ben is ready to take the fight to them. Vic shakes his head and replies, Miss Stevens, he might be playing right into their hands. I state, Vic, we will have to see what Ben and Jennifer say. We arrive at the gate and are met by the guards and a drone. Vic notices there's a sniper on the hill. I hold Vic in check. I'm sure it's part of the new security protocol. Vic complains, well, the sniper is too exposed to be of any great benefit. The security guard approaches the car and declares, state your business. I reply, Samantha Stevens, her bodyguard and cameraman, to interview the Blaines. Liz should have informed you of our arrival. The security guard replies, yes, we have been notified. However, we still need everyone to exit the vehicle while it is examined. We exit the vehicle. The security guard notices Vic's weapons and orders, sir, no unauthorized weapons are allowed in the compound. Please relinquish your weapons to us. Vic begins to complain and I order, Vic, please comply with the safety procedures. Vic begins to give his weapons to the security guard. Then all hell breaks loose. A car rounds the corner. The machine gun in the bunker at the front gate begins to fire at it. The sniper begins to fire, while Vic tosses me to the ground and begins to fire at the vehicle. The next thing I know, there's a big explosion and our van has been destroyed in a fireball. I pick myself up off the ground and John says, Sam, we got some great video of the terrors. We will let you do the voiceover later. I ask, what the hell happened? Vic says, it was a terror car bomb attack, and we're lucky we weren't in the van. I reply, then van is gone. Vic hugs me and replies, that's right. The car bomb rammed into the van and destroyed it when it detonated. I mention, that's twice they've attacked the cabin with a car bomb. Vic quickly replies, and unfortunately, it's not going to be the last time. We hear a diesel motor start, and the security guard apologizes, sorry, Ms. Summers. We need to move the van and car away from the entrance to the cabin. A huge caterpillar comes from behind the blockhouse and pushes the van and car away from the gate. It backs up, they close the gate, and the caterpillar moves forward and places its blade against the gate. Vic says, that's one wise move. Now no one will get through that gate. I ask, how are we getting to the cabin? An old police car drives up. Tom exits from it, grins at us and comments, I thought you might need a ride. We climb into the back. Vic takes the front and Tom complains, sir, you need to leave those weapons in my car. Vic begins to argue and I interrupt. Vic, this is the rule here now, and you will comply. Vic once again mutters, well, I've still got my hands. Tom laughs and says, and Ben and Jennifer have the angels of death for their bodyguards. I would love to see you and them have a martial arts competition. Vic surprises me when he backs down. No thanks, I've run into them before. Shit, the stupid terrors who I called about the bitch came closer to killing my BFF Samantha than anyone else. I decided I needed to make some more calls and hopefully get better quality terrors here to take care of the bitch. Then, with the little bitch prevented from bewitching my Ben, I could take her place. Flashback. Masha, the night. After the discussion with Louise about attending school, she yawned and said, Masha, I'm tired and I need to wake up early tomorrow. I asked Louise, why is that? Louise giggled and said, I guess you forgot. Tomorrow is moving day. I gasped and confessed, I totally forgot about that. What time are you starting? Louise said, Michael is going to be here with a truck at 7:30 sharp. I inquired, where did he get a truck? Louise replied, he rented it from a local hardware store. I said, then we need to go to sleep now, so I can make breakfast for everyone. Louise said, Masha, I'm not sure that Michael will eat your breakfast. I sort of told him about your crusade against sugar, and he said he was going to get his sugar fixed before he showed up. I smiled and replied, Michael could probably get more benefit from removing sugar from his diet than anyone else. Louise asked, why is that any, Masha? I smiled at her and explained, he's overweight and I think he has some health problems. Louise said, well, I'm heading to bed. This is the last night of sharing a bed. We went into the bedroom. Louise and Linda went into the bathroom first. Then I went to the bathroom, and they were fast asleep when I climbed into bed. Flashback. Ben, the striker mission continued. I saw some movement that I didn't like and announced, it looks like we have some scumsuckers moving into range. I was just getting ready to fire when a helicopter gunship came around the corner of a building and lit the scumsuckers up. It then flew patrol over the site to make sure we were clear. The main agent came out of the striker and asked, how are things going? I replied, from what I saw, this isn't going to be a walk in the park for Michael. I'm sure he's taking his time digging up the vest. If I were you, I would stay inside the striker. The agent provided more information. We have a new striker coming, and it should be here in about an hour. Do you feel we will be safe until then? I replied with disgust, I can't promise you anything with these mercs responsible for protection. The agent asked, what do you need to make sure the area is secure until the next striker arrives? I waved my hand toward the mercs and said, I'd love to replace these worthless scumsuckers with some of my Marines. The agent asked, could we get them here safely? I replied, if the gunship kept the scumsuckers busy, we should be fine. The agent asked, how many of your Marines would you need here? I surveyed the area and said, another 5 would be great. Make sure they are fully loaded and several should have M203s on their rifles. Michael strolled up and said, other than loading the suicide vest into a AITA transport container, my work here is done. By the way, that gunship about did me in. Next time a warning would be nice. The agent said, shit, I didn't know you would need an AITA trailer. I didn't ask for one with the new striker that's coming. Michael said, there's no way I'm moving the vest without one, so get one here. The agent swore, shit. That means it will be closer to 2 or 3 hours before we can leave. Let me go make some calls. I noticed the look in Michael's eyes and asked, so this was a real son of a bitch? Michael looked at me and replied, that's putting it mildly. The guy that built this was a genius. I would love to meet him. I smiled at Michael and offered, you might just get your wish because unless something has happened to him, he's over there in the hospital. Michael rubbed his hands together, motioned to me to head into the striker where I yelled at the mercs, keep your eyes open. I will be right back. I followed Michael into the destroyed striker as the main agent said, perfect timing, Sergeant. This is for you. I pick up the mic and George asked, Ben, I hear you need 5 men to help establish a perimeter. When can I send them to you? I replied, sir, wait a moment. I looked at the main agent and asked, Michael would like to talk with the prisoner. I was thinking of taking him to the hospital and leading my men back here. The agent's face showed concern, which it should since he was protected by the worthless mercs, and he asked, will we be safe until you get back? I suggested, get the gunship to patrol the area and you should be fine. If the shit really hits the fan, lock up the striker and wait for us to arrive. The main agent suggested an alternative. How about you get your Marines in place before you and Michael head to the hospital? I grinned at the agent and sarcastically asked, what's wrong? Don't you trust your mercenaries? The agent confessed, of course we don't. Not after what they let happen to this striker. It's going to be held justifying the loss of the striker to our bosses. I laughed and said, so you're going to throw the mercs under the bus and let them take the blame. The agent asked, how did you know? I replied, you've forgotten that some of your compatriots tried that with me and my spotter. I picked up the mic and replied to George, sorry sir to keep you waiting. We're going to have the gunship fly cover. Once it starts, get our sniper team going and send me 5 damn good Marines. Once we set up a good perimeter, I will be bringing an AITA expert to the hospital because he wants to talk to the prisoner. George asked, are you planning on staying when you come back? I replied, negative, sir. I need to be on site until the new striker arrives and the suicide vest gets loaded into a AITA transport trailer. George didn't give me any shit. He simply replied, I understand, SGT. I handed the mic to the agent and said, "Get the gunship moving." The gunship started flying patrols and firing at I don't know what. I stepped out of the striker and saw 5 of my Marines haul in a zigzag pattern toward the striker while my sniper team began to light things up. My Marines arrived. I ordered, "The new striker won't be here for several hours. We need to establish a defendable perimeter to keep the scumsuckers from getting to us." One of the Marines asked, "What about the mercenaries?" I commended, "Good eyes, Marine. The mercs are worthless, so don't count on them for anything substantial." I deployed my Marines, and like I assumed would happen, the mercs wandered back into the striker. I looked at the lead agent and asked, "Any problem with me taking Michael to see the prisoner?" He said, "No problems now." I looked at all the mercs, found one close in size to Michael, and ordered, "Strip out of your tactical gear and give it to Michael." He began to complain until the main agent said, "You heard the order." He complied with the agent's order. I helped Michael out of his EOD suit and into the newly liberated tactical gear. I checked it and swore, "You sons of a bitches didn't put plates in your plate carriers? Are you crazy?" The lead merc replied, "We almost never do that. We find it slows us up too much." I shook my head, pulled the extra pair of plates out of my tactical vest, loaded them into Michael's tactical vest, and he asked, "Ben, won't you need these?" The stupid merc commented, "You wear 2 plates in your tactical vest. You must get shot all the time." I replied to Michael and then the idiot, "Thanks, Michael. I don't have any plans for getting shot, so I don't need these." Then I glared at the merc and said, "I can't remember the last time I was shot, but if I am, I want to be alive to return fire." I handed the mic to the main agent and asked, "How about getting the gunship to make another run?" He called in the gunship. We heard it firing, and I ordered Michael, "Make sure you stay right on my 6, zig when I zig and zag when I zag." Michael replied, "Don't worry, Ben. I was once an active Marine." We hauled toward the hospital. It made my heart feel good to hear my sniper team covering us. Flashback, Jack, convincing Colonel Maggie. I spent some time and thought about the best way to handle getting Todd deployed with me, and I knew what I needed to do. My back still hurt, but I wasn't sure if it was from the surgery or the injury from the plane. Either way, I needed to suck it up and get my butt and Todd's butt to the hospital and check with a couple doctors and some nurses. Then I came up with another idea that should justify my trip to the hospital. I walked into Colonel Maggie's office. After her aide announced me, I said, "Sir, I formally request a return to my previous post with Ben at the hospital." Colonel Maggie didn't even look up and said, "Formal request denied." So I began to argue my case. "Sir, I'm feeling much better." She interrupted, "What about Todd?" I replied, "Sir, the best way to train Todd is to take him with me to the hospital." She looked up, thought for a moment, and said, "Sergeant, I like that idea." I added fuel to my request. "Sir, I've wondered what the hell we're doing with a hospital out there when we aren't staffing it with doctors and nurses." She tapped a pencil on her desk and agreed. "Sergeant, I can tell you've put some thought into this. The hospital should have at least 2 doctors and 4 or 5 nurses. It still looks like you have something else on your mind?" I finally dropped my last idea. "Sir, I could take the re-enlistment papers for Sergeant Blaine with me and have him sign them. Because you never know when he might change his mind." Colonel Maggie smiled and said, "Sergeant, that's a hell of a justification. I do have concerns about your back surgery. Is it healed enough for you to get back into the field?" I made sure to take one of Ben's pain pill 30 minutes before coming into her office. I bent over, touched my toes, and replied, "I'm not 100%, but I'm certainly well enough to be back in action. Besides, with the doctors at the hospital, if I have any problems, they can take care of me." She looked at me and replied, "Sergeant Reynolds, I like these ideas. If you can get approval from the medical staff here, you're headed back." I replied, "Thank you, sir. I will get approval today." I left her office, and now I needed to find a doctor I could BS. Flashback, Jennifer at home. I announced, "Since nothing's going on down here, I'm headed to my room." Daniela offered, "Senorita Jennifer, I have more food if you are still hungry." I thought for a few moments about accepting the offer just to irritate Daddy, but I had this strange feeling that I needed to get to my room, so I said, "Not right now. I'm not hungry any longer." Daddy still complained. I would hope not. I taunted him and smiled. However, later I might want something else to eat. I left for my room as Daddy complained about me eating him out of house and home. Daniela didn't understand the phrase, so Daddy tried to explain it to her. I walked into my room, locked the door, and then jumped with surprise. There, flying around, close to the ceiling on a broom and cackling, was a miniature grandmother. Once I settled down from the surprise, I asked, "Grandmother, what are you doing?" Grandmother stopped, landed on the floor, grew to her normal size, and said, "I like the answer you gave Glenn about the broom, so I thought I would surprise you." I hugged Grandmother and said, "Thank you for always being so encouraging. Someday I hope I'm half the witch you are." Grandmother said, "My love, that's why I'm here. You need to begin your training." I asked, Will I get a magic wand like Glinda the Good Witch? Grandmother laughed and said, Jennifer, do not believe all that you see in TV and on the movies about witches. We don't carry magic wands. But I do want to caution you about your housekeeper since she is a firm believer in witches, and if she even thinks that you're a witch, it will be a bad thing. I apologized. Sorry, grandmother. I already told her mother said I was a witch. But she laughed about it like it was a joke. Grandmother said, yes, my love. I saw it, so don't worry, but also don't encourage her anymore. And we need to slow down on the healings, otherwise Daniela will become suspicious. I reminded grandmother, you said it was time for my training? How will I do this? Grandmother waved her hands, and a big, old book appeared. She handed it to me and said, now move your hands like I did. I waved my hands, and the book disappeared. I waved them again, and it reappeared. I remarked, this is cool. So this will teach me what I can and cannot do. Grandmother took my hands and said, yes, my love, it will. However, do not ever leave the book exposed. Always make sure you hide it before leaving the room or letting anyone into your room. I am sure you will have many questions, so I will be back many times to help you with those questions. Grandmother left. I waved my hands like her. The book appeared, and I began to read. The first chapters were the history of our family, and I was shocked when I found out that some of my relatives were killed in the Salam witch trials. Flashback. Alexei, fishing. Father was extremely quiet on the way home, so I asked, Father, why are you so quiet? He replied, Alexei, I've been thinking about this fishing class, and I'm not sure it's a good idea for us to attend. I pouted and asked, why not, Father? It seems like an excellent recreational activity for us. Father confessed, Alexei, I really did not have a very good time today. The thought of doing it every Saturday for I don't know how many weeks sort of makes me sick. Dejected, I said, okay, Father, it was just a new thing that we were doing together, and it totally took my mind off Mother and Chow Mein. I couldn't believe it when Father suggested, Alexei, would you like to see your mother? Even though I hated the laboratory, it had been a part of my life for so long I still missed it a little, so I replied, yes, Father, that would be nice. Perhaps she is better and can come home with us. Father reiterated, Alexei, do not get your hopes up because I do not think she will ever come back to the house. Instead of going home, Father drove to the laboratory. When we walked in, I was shocked. Flashback, Ira and Mira, continuing. My inner accoutrements were dry, and as I began to place them on my corporeal self, Mira complained, Ira, how did your accoutrements dry so rapidly? I explained, the arrangement of my accoutrements was superior to yours, which aided in the speed of their drying. Mira continued with her complaints. Ira, my nether regions are cold. I went to her accoutrements, rearranged them, and said, soon you will be able to replace your accoutrements. Then your nether regions should be warmed. Mira smiled at me and said, thank you, my sister. What would I do without you? I laughed and replied, you would probably freeze your nether regions. Mira began to search the pockets of her outer accoutrements, pulled out a bag, and said, Ira, I have found something. I walked over, examined it, and stated, yes, Mira, you have discovered cannabis. Mira postulated, perhaps this is why the troops are so inept. I suggested, Mira, perhaps we could use this cannabis you discovered as enticement in a trap. Mira affirmed, yes, Ira, you are correct. It should make excellent bait. We began to devise a trap to be used with the cannabis. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. Roberto brought enough food to choke several horses. Even though it was excellent, I became full and pushed my plate away. Roberto asked, didn't you like the food? I smiled and signed while Maria translated. Todd says he is full and suggests we save the rest of the food in the refrigerator for tonight. Gail then signed, I don't believe it, but I'm full too. Maria said, thanks, Roberto. I will put the rest of the food in the refrigerator and then we can go shopping. I signed, could we stop by the bank first so I can withdraw more money? Roberto said, sure, no problem at all. I just hope that shopping for furniture for this house won't be as bad as clothes shopping was. I laughed and said, same here, but since I'm along, I'm sure it won't be. We headed out to the car, drove to the bank, and then I discovered that furniture shopping was every bit as bad as clothes shopping had been. Present, Tom and Samantha, driving Vic and the news crew to the tunnels. Shit. I was hoping that Victor would take me up on a martial arts fight with the twins since I would love to see him get his butt kicked since he was such a repeater. But he said he had fought them before. Then I remembered where he had a run-in with Ira. It was when Stacy shot Ben, so I taunt. Yeah, Ira really kicked you, but when Stacy shot Ben, you're lucky she didn't kill you. Vic grumbles, it was fortunate I didn't kill her. I laugh and continue the taunts. Yeah, right. If you knew how many people have tried to kill them through the years, you'd realize how lucky you were. Neither of them are known for their restraint. He declares, they should be shipped back to whatever stand they came from. All those stand countries are shitholes. I have him going now, and with my guidance he is going to cook his own goose. I add some fuel to keep his fire going when I laugh and say, "You mean Kazakhstan?" Unfortunately, there's no way anyone can touch them since they have diplomatic passports. Vic replies, "Typical communist ploy, give their spies diplomatic immunity." I laugh. "Men, are you out of touch? Kazakhstan is now a republic and is rich as hell because of all the oil, natural gas, and mineral deposits. Besides, the women from Kazakhstan are said to be the most beautiful women in Central Asia." Tom has Vic all worked up, and I'm not sure why, but I've let it go on long enough, so I step in. "Vic and Tom, stop behaving like little boys and professionally do your jobs." Tom laughs and Vic apologizes. "Sorry, Miss Stevens, Tom, and I got off on the wrong foot." Tom interrupts. And since then, Vic has been putting that foot in his mouth. He doesn't realize that all conversations in this car are monitored by the control room in the cabin. With his insults of Kazakhstan, it should be interesting when Ira and Mira meet us at the entrance to the tunnels. I say, "Don't worry, Vic. I will make sure they leave you alone." I do have some pull with Ben and Jennifer. We arrive in the garage. The car is surrounded by security and Tom orders, "All weapons need to stay in the vehicle." Vic grumbles, but leaves his guns and knife in Tom's car. We exit the vehicle, and Tom says, "Now we need to do a quick search of the three of you." He motions to Mira and asks, "Will you please check Samantha?" I am thankful that it isn't a man who searches me, because she searches everywhere. Yes, even there. It was much worse than a TSA search at an airport. I was thankful that Tom, and not Mira or Ira, searched Vic, but was upset when Tom discovered a hidden knife on Vic. Tom motions to his guards and orders, "Put him in the holding cell until we return." Vic says, "Sorry, I forgot about that. Can't you give me a break?" Tom is being a hard and states, "After the way you treated me at the restaurant? It doesn't matter. You've broken the rules, so now you don't get access to the tunnels." Vic is placed into a holding cell while we are escorted inside. Tom says, "Samantha, please make sure your report doesn't contain anything about our new security measures. We're still trying to figure out how the terrorists determined Ben and Jennifer are back and mounted the car bomb attack on the front gate." We walk through the tunnels, pass through a device that looks like a metal detector, and it goes crazy. Tom says, "One of you must be carrying a mobile phone." Gretchen runs up and demands, "Who has the mobile phone?" I pull mine out of my purse and confess, "Sorry, I didn't know I couldn't bring this with me. Please don't lock me in the holding cell." Gretchen scolds Tom. "Tom, you didn't explain the rules to them." Tom says, "Sorry, after I found the knife on Samantha's bodyguard, I was distracted." Gretchen looks at my phone and says, "Samantha, something doesn't seem to be quite right with your phone." I ask, "What do you mean?" Gretchen replies, "Well, it looks like it's trying to connect to another phone." Then Gretchen orders, "Let's head to the Faraday cage with this." We begin to walk toward the control room, and I ask, "What's a Faraday cage?" Gretchen explains, "It's a room that's covered either in wire mesh or copper that isolates all incoming and outgoing signals. If your phone has been hacked, we can't be too careful." We head into a wire mesh room, and Gretchen begins to examine my phone and says, "Well, I think we've discovered how the terrorists knew about Ben and Jennifer being back. This phone has been blue-bugged." I ask, "What does that mean?" Gretchen informs me, "It means that someone else was listening to every call you made on this phone." Tom asks, "Can we figure out the number it was calling?" Gretchen answers, "Unfortunately not." Ben and Jennifer walk into the control room, see us in the Faraday cage, and Jennifer asks, "Gretchen, is there a problem?" Gretchen replies, "Yeah, someone blue-bugged Samantha's phone. That's how the terrorists knew you were back." Jennifer suggests, "Gretchen, can you clone her phone so we can look at the program to figure out who did it?" Gretchen answers, "Jennifer, I don't think that will work with her phone. The best thing to do is to destroy this phone and give her a new one." Jennifer looks at Ben and comments, "Ben, see how easy it is to hack one of the newer phones." Ben says, "Thanks, Gretchen, for finding this, but I didn't think we allowed mobile phones into the tunnels." Tom confesses, "That's my fault. I found a knife on her bodyguard and was distracted by that. It won't happen again." Ben asks, "Where's Samantha's bodyguard?" Tom replies, "He's outside in the holding cell." Ben orders, "Tom, let him out of the holding cell, check him for mobile phones, and bring him in here. It's too damn cold to hold anyone outside." Tom leaves, and I ask, "Where would you like to do your interview?" Jennifer states, "Well, certainly not here. How about our bedroom?" Ben reminds her, "Jens, my love, are you forgetting we're having some work done in our bedroom?" Jennifer giggles and says, "Oh yeah, I did forget about that." I ask with a little sarcasm, "What sort of work are you having done to your bedroom? A bulletproof door?" Jennifer blushes, and Ben says, "No. Jens liked the mirrors on the ceiling in the place we were staying so much, we had to add some to our bedroom." Jennifer, still blushing, suggests, "How about the meeting room?" Ira states, "Yes, that would be superior to your bedroom domicile." I ask Gretchen, "What about my mobile phone?" Gretchen shakes her head and says, "Sorry, it's not leaving the Faraday cage." Talk to Liz about getting you a new one. We move into the main meeting room. John sets up the camera, and I begin my interview. Good day, America. This is Samantha Stevens with the Truth Network interviewing Ben and Jennifer Blaine. They have recently returned from what we found out was a self-imposed exile. Would you please tell America what prompted your return? Ben looks at the camera and replies, yeah, I will tell you. I got tired of running from the terror scumsuckers. Jennifer leans over and suggests, Ben, try not to swear. They will just have to bleep out the swear words. Ben apologizes, sorry about that. I think I can get through this without swearing. Can we start over again? Of course we can, so I repeat. Good day, America. This is Samantha Stevens with the Truth Network interviewing Ben and Jennifer Blaine. They have recently returned from what we found out was a self-imposed exile. Would you please tell America what prompted your return? Ben smiles at the camera and replies, yes, I will tell you why we are back. I fought these terrors in multiple countries, and I'm not about to let them chase us from our home here in America. I ask, so where were you on your exile? Jennifer responds, sorry, Samantha, but we can't disclose our location while in exile. I continue, aren't you concerned that the enemy might strike again? Ben replies, you mean like they already tried this morning with the car bomb at the front gate? I welcome the opportunity to face them. Jennifer quickly covers Ben's mouth and interrupts, let's keep it civil. Ben smiles, hugs her, and says, thanks for keeping me in check. But as I was saying, I'm ready to stand against those who threaten us. Then Ben turns to Samantha. How much do you know about their ideology? I admit, just a little. Ben continues, their beliefs are based on the teachings of a historical figure, but interpretations of his message vary widely. Some aspects of his life are the subject of much debate. Surprised, I say, I had no idea. Ben nods. Yes, history records many different perspectives. But the real issue is that, throughout time, some have used these teachings to justify violence. Ben pulls out a worn book, and I comment, looks like you've studied that a lot. Ben smiles at the camera and replies, I have. I carried this with me during my time overseas. It's important to understand different perspectives. Ben flips it open and reads, a passage that has often been debated states, then fight in the cause of your beliefs, and know that the higher power is aware of all things. I realize the discussion could continue indefinitely, but Jennifer refocuses us. What really matters is that our message is one of hope. Ben interrupts, that's right. We're done running from those who want to silence us. Jennifer, once again, gently stops him from getting too fired up. We stand firm, but we won't let anger define us. Ben hugs Jennifer and continues, we refuse to live in fear. We will stand for what we believe in, no matter the cost. Jennifer adds, the reality is, those who spread fear and destruction will ultimately find themselves trapped by their own actions. Shocked by the intensity of their conviction, I regain my composure and ask, aren't you worried that you or your friends could be in danger? They exchange a determined glance and share a brief kiss. Jennifer answers, no, we're not. We know we're meant to be here, and we won't be stopped. I ask, how can you be so sure? Ben replies, because we believe there's a greater purpose for us, and our mission isn't finished yet. Jens laughs and adds a famous line from the Blues Brothers. Yeah, we're on a mission from God. Before I can react, Ira walks into the interview, holds up a bullet, and states, I am one of Blaine's bodyguards. Mira enters from the other side, holding up what appears to be another bullet, and says, I am the other bodyguard for Blaine. Many know us as the Angels of Death. Ira continues, these bullets are specially prepared. Every round we use carries a message. I ask, it sounds like you've declared war on your enemies. Jennifer affirms, that's right, we have declared war on the terrors. Ben, do you have anything else to say? Ben says, nothing at all. I conclude the interview. There you have it, America. Ben and Jennifer are not only back, they have declared war on the terrors. John kills the camera. I look at them and ask, do you really want me to air this report? They both look at each other, smile at me, and Jennifer answers, yes, we do. We are serious. Vic walks up to me and suggests, Miss Stevens, we need to leave as soon as possible. I ask, why is that? Vic says, what they have said will be like kicking a hornet's nest. Every terror in the country is going to be angry as hell and coming for them. Liz arrives and says, good job as always, Samantha. I ask, are we still on for tomorrow? Liz smiles and says, of course we are. Why do you ask? I reply, aren't you worried about what the terrors will do? Liz points toward Mira and Ira and says, not with those two watching our backs, I'm not. I remember our earlier problems and comment, Liz, Gretchen discovered my mobile phone had been hacked, and that was how the terrors were getting information on Ben and Jennifer. Liz said, Sam, you need to be more careful with your mobile phone. Go buy a new one and let the network pay for it. And this time make sure you don't let anyone borrow it. Liz leaves and I begin to think about what she said. The only person I let borrow my phone was Stacy. Surely she couldn't still be after Ben. Present, Stacy and Samantha, at Stacy's office and the castle. My mobile connection to Samantha's phone was gone. I guess the tunnels blocked it, or they discovered I had blue-bugged her phone. I wasn't worried. If Samantha got a new phone, it was easy enough to blue-bug it. I still couldn't believe that the bitch was a witch and came from a long line of witches. It was too bad that people stopped believing in witches, otherwise I could use that as ammunition against her. Then I came up with an idea that should shake up the bitch. I call Bill and ask, "Could we meet in the office?" He replies, "Sure, give me a couple minutes." By the way, one of our vans was destroyed at the cabin by terrors. Even though I know all about it, I pretend, no, I didn't know that. Was anyone injured or killed? Bill says, "Thank God no, but this whole terror situation is getting out of hand. I would like to talk with you about it when we meet." I reply, "No problem, I'll see you in a few minutes." Bill finally shows up to the office, and I command, "Close the door and turn on the sound masking." Yeah, we had white noise sound masking installed in my office. Bill turns on the masking and I ask, "Do we still have the bodies?" Bill replies, "Of course we do. I was wondering what we were going to do with them." I smile at him and reply, "I think it's time we return them to their rightful owners." Bill asks, "You want me to bring them here and leave them at the cabin?" With the increase in security, that's a suicide mission. I would surely be apprehended. I continue, "What would happen if we made sure to clean any possible evidence that implicates us where they are presently located and let them be discovered there?" Bill thinks for a moment and suggests, "Miss Summers, we really can't let the cold storage containers be taken since they point directly to us. Perhaps it would be better if we remove them from the containers and place them somewhere that they will be found." I smile at Bill and say, "I like that idea even better. We just need to make sure that nothing will ever point to us." Bill replies, "No problem, I know exactly what to do. Now can we discuss?" I stop Bill and say, "Look, it's a report from Samantha. Let's listen to it." We listen to the report, and Bill shakes his head several times during the broadcast. When it's finished, Bill says, "Stacy, now things are worse than ever. I have real concerns about moving our base of operations here and with letting Samantha live here. Every terror in the country is going to be going after Ben and—" I interrupt, "Don't you dare call her anything other than a bitch." Bill complains, "Ms. Summers, I thought you were over Ben and his bitch." I toss a report to him and reply, "I was until I found out the bitch is a witch. That's how she keeps control over Ben." Bill says, "I will look at this later. Right now we need to discuss security for our employees here and the brewery." I ask, "What are your suggestions?" Bill replies, "We should hire more security forces and place them in strategic locations, close down the restaurant which was opened in the brewery, and increase the monitoring with the cameras that we installed." I reply, "Hire as many men as you feel that you need and deploy them as you see fit. Now this solves the restaurant problem, but it won't make Inga happy. Please tell her and the chef why we are making the decision, and let them know if things ever get back to normal, we will reconsider the expanded restaurant. Work with the sheriff to see about adding more security cameras that provide coverage of our employees' houses, and ask him if he needs to increase his staff. And there's no way I'm kicking Samantha out. Figure out how much of a target she is, and if necessary hire some more bodyguards for her." While I'm thinking about it, how are things coming on her castle? Finally, other than for Inga and the chef, let's keep this all as quiet as possible. Bill replies, "The exterior and the lower rooms of the castle are finished and ready to be occupied." I interrupt, "Bill, Samantha had some crazy drawings about putting a moat around her castle. Take a look at them and see if they can be incorporated as a method of protection." Bill says, "That might be an excellent idea. I will take a look at them and figure out the cost." I state, "Bill, if it's for our security," and I say our security because I'm moving into the castle with her, "then don't worry about the cost." Bill replies, "Yes, Ms. Summers, that might be a wise idea because I could station guards at the top of the towers." He hands me the keys to the castle and asks, "Which project would you like me to start on first?" I smile at Bill and say, "The bodies first, and then the restaurant, and finally the moat around the castle." Bill states, "Ms. Summers, I will be unavailable for some hours." Vic and Samantha walk into the office, overhear that Bill is leaving, and Vic offers, "Don't worry, Bill, I'll be here." Bill smiles and says, "Good, now I feel much better." Bill leaves. I look at Samantha and comment, "That was some report you did. I heard we lost a van at the cabin." Samantha says, "Yeah, sorry about that. I will see that it's replaced. That was probably the scariest news report I ever did." I say, "Don't worry about the van. So were they serious about fighting the terrors?" Vic replies, "Yes, Miss Summers, they were. That's why I got Miss Stevens out of there as fast as possible." I smile at Vic and praise, "That was good thinking. I'm so glad that Samantha hired you. I do hope that the Truth Network is treating you well." Vic replies, "Yes, Miss Summers, they are treating me and my family very well. We couldn't be happier. My wife has finally adjusted to the altitude here and loves all the friendly people and the shops." I direct my attention to Samantha and say, "Samantha, I have some good news for you." Samantha pleads, Stacy, don't drive me crazy, please tell me. I smile and reply, the lower floor of the castle is finished, and we can move in whenever you would like. Not only that, we want to look at those plans of yours for a moat around the castle. Samantha says, I can't believe it's finally done. It seems like it took forever. Could we go see it now? I reply, why not? We begin to leave, and Vic leads the way. When we open the outer office doors, we see 2 more security guards that I am sure Bill left for us. Vic orders, fall in behind us. They obey. We walk outside where 2 more security guards join our group. We walk down the hill to Samantha's castle, and as we approach, Samantha says, it's even more beautiful than I remember. I hold her hand and say, that's because the exterior has been finished. We walk up to the porch. I hand the keys to Samantha and say, welcome to your castle. Her hands shake as she opens the door. She walks inside, gasps, and begins to cry. I hug her, and she says, Stacy, how can I ever repay you for this? I reply, Samantha, your friendship is payment enough. Shoot, I really wanted to talk with Stacy about my mobile phone, but after seeing the castle, I know that I can never bring up the subject. This place is exactly as I dreamed it would be, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised since I did create the plans for it. We walk into one of the turret bedrooms, and Vic complains, Miss Stevens, I'm not sure about you staying here. There is too much glass in this room. Miss Summers says, Vic, don't worry. The glass is bulletproof, and the walls are thick stone. Vic relents, that makes me feel better. This place is incredible. I reply, thank you, Vic. I drew the plans myself. Now all we have to do is get some furniture. Stacy asks, Sam, do you have any idea what sort of furniture you want? I shake my head and say, I don't have any idea. Stacy suggests, how about we take the jet tomorrow and do some furniture shopping? I ask, are you sure? Stacy says, why not? We haven't done a shopping trip in a while. Now I'm going to leave you in your castle. Come back to the offices when you're finished looking around, and we can figure out a time to leave. Stacy leaves along with 3 of the bodyguards. The other 2 stay here with me and Vic. I dance around the room and imagine what it would have been like to be a real princess in a real castle. Vic asks, so, you didn't talk to Miss Summers about your phone? I reply, no, Vic, and I don't plan to. I will replace my phone tomorrow, and I will make sure she never touches it again. Flashback, Masha, moving day. Because of my special training, I naturally woke up earlier than Louise and Linda. I slipped out of bed, went into the bathroom, and did my morning routine, then headed to the kitchen to make breakfast. Breakfast was ready when Louise, carrying Linda, came out of the back and said, wow, I didn't even hear you wake up. I smiled at her and replied, I wanted to wake up early so I could prepare your breakfast. It's complete, so have a seat at the table. Louise sat down. I brought a plate over, and Louise asked, Masha, this is a huge amount of food? I replied, I know you will be working hard, so I made a large breakfast and also packed a lunch for you. Louise sighed, Annie, Masha, you treat me too well. I grinned at her and replied, Louise, I knew if I didn't pack a lunch for you that you and Michael would have probably depended upon fast food. She laughed, yeah, Annie, Masha, you're right. Michael already told me he looked forward to buying lunch for me. I glared and confronted her. And you would have eaten that terrible food? Louise giggled and teased me. I got you, Annie, Masha. I would have gone without food rather than eaten any fast food. You have trained me well. I boldly inquired. And do you feel any better? Louise confessed. I notice I don't get tired as often, and after seeing Tina's behavior, I was convinced. That reminded me, so I asked, did Brenda give you any problems at work? Louise giggled and replied, no, she couldn't come to work because she didn't have a sitter. But don't feel bad about it because Gwen and I told Michael the entire story about Tina, and Michael was nice enough to give her the time off without pay instead of making her take vacation time. I asked, won't Brenda miss the income? Louise answered, no, she always brags about how much money her husband makes. I thought for a moment and asked, it seems to me that you, Gwen and Brenda are 3 very different people. How is it that you all became friends? Louise said, you're right, we're all different. I guess we're friends because we all work at the market. But Gwen and I are much closer than Brenda and I ever dreamed of being. In fact, Brenda is a little jealous of, well, almost everything. Gwen's and my relationship, me coming to live here with you. You name it, and she's jealous of it. I thought again and replied, usually when someone is so jealous, it means they are having problems for which they are having difficulty coping. Louise said, boy, howdy, are you right. Brenda has come to work with bruises from her husband's abuse. I internally grinned at the American colloquial expression, but shook my head and remarked, no man ever has a right to injure any woman. Louise said, that's true, Masha, and I'm sure going to miss the Krav Maga lessons. I don't ever want to be in a position again where I feel like I can't defend myself. I blink a couple times and ask, Louise, when were you ever in that position? We heard a truck horn. Louise kissed Linda, grabbed her lunch, and said, sorry, Masha, that's Michael, so I need to get going. We will finish this discussion tonight. I proceed to Louise and Linda's new room. Make sure it's spotless, and then Linda and I begin to work on her picture book while I wonder when Louise was mistreated by a man. Flashback. Ben. The striker mission continued. Michael and I made it to the hospital without any problems. George met us at the door and said, "Sergeant, you might want to head up to the roof and take a look at what's going on." I pointed to a private and said, "Sorry, Michael. It looks like you're going to be on your own. Take Michael to the prisoner interrogation room." Then I added, "The agents worked him over pretty hard, so I'm not sure how much good this will do you." Michael laughed and said, "I have ways of extracting information they never dreamed of." I offered, "Unless they removed them. There's a set of taser probes connected to his genitals." Michael laughed and said, "Damn, that's almost evil." I replied, "It sure as hell motivated him to walk when he tried his stubborn donkey act." I dashed up to the roof, saw George, ran beside him as he pointed and said, "I think there's going to be some problems at the striker." He pointed at a truck trying to work its way to the striker. I swore, "You're right, there's going to be some problems. Get on the horn and call in an airstrike. If that truck gets close enough to the striker, it will destroy it." I couldn't believe the scumsuckers had mounted a M40 recoilless rifle. The M40 recoilless rifle is a lightweight, portable, crew-served 105mm weapon intended primarily as an anti-tank weapon and manufactured in the United States. In the back of a truck, and we're trying to get to the striker. I ran over to the sniper manning the Barrett and ordered, "Destroy the hell out of that truck." He began to fire at it and smoke started to come out of the engine compartment. I further ordered, "Shoot that big gun in the back of the truck." The other snipers fired on the truck, and one of them must have hit something because there was a big explosion which shook the hospital. It was impressive enough that Michael ran up on the roof and asked, "What the hell was that?" I pointed at the slowly disappearing mushroom cloud and replied, "The scumsuckers had an M40 on a truck. We must have gotten lucky and blew the scumsuckers to hell." Michael countered, "Lucky hell. From the size of the explosion and the color of the cloud, I would say you have some problems coming if the cloud heads this way." I asked for clarification, "What the hell do you mean?" Michael said, "The explosion was too big for a conventional weapon, so it was either a dirty bomb or some sort of gas round that got touched off. Either way, if it heads this way, it's bad news." I looked at George and suggested, "Sir, it might be a good idea to implement MOPP protocols." George looked at me and ordered, "Do it first, SGT." I yelled in my command voice, "All Marines, put on your MOPP, mission-oriented protective posture." Is protective gear used by U.S. military personnel in a toxic environment, e.g., during a chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear strike. Gear. They grumbled as they began to pull out their gear and put it on. I looked at Michael and asked, "Where's your MOPP gear?" He replied, "My EOD suit is my MOPP, which is back at the striker." I smiled at him and said, "Don't worry, I stashed some extras in my UOP pack." I looked at a private and ordered, "Find the Marine who has my UOP pack and have him haul up here ASAP." He wisely asked, "Do I find him first or do I get into my MOPP gear?" I looked at the cloud, noted it was drifting away from us, but unfortunately toward the disabled striker, and ordered, "Find the UOP pack first." Then I turned to George and said, "Sir, the cloud is headed toward the striker. You need to call the striker and have our Marines get into their MOPP gear." George hauled downstairs to the comm room as the private returned with the corporal that had the UOP. I almost laughed because the corporal was about half in his MOPP gear. I took the UOP pack, opened it up, and thank God the corporal didn't screw with it. I pulled out a set of MOPP gear, handed them to Michael, and said, "I think you know what to do with this." I had recovered my sniper rifle earlier, so I pulled up the rifle, looked through the scope, and noticed our Marines getting into their MOPP gear. Then I noticed the mercs and agents waving frantically from the back of the disabled striker and swore, "Those stupid scumsuckers didn't bring MOPP gear." I dashed down to the comm room, ran in, and told George, "The agents and mercs didn't bring MOPP gear. I need to bring them to the hospital." George said, "Not without you putting on your MOPP gear first." I think I set a record for getting into MOPP gear. Then I suggested, "Sir, have the snipers keep the scumsuckers busy." George sent a private up to the roof with the order, then the snipers began to fire as I ran down the stairs and wondered why the hell we didn't have the elevators working. I dashed out of the hospital and headed toward the screwed-up striker as fast as I could. Flashback, Jack, getting ready to head to the hospital. It wasn't as hard as I thought to find a doctor who would agree that I was fit for duty. I gave the paperwork to Colonel Maggie's aide and waited. He came back later and said, "Sergeant Reynolds, you and Private Todd are leaving in 10 minutes. We got ready to leave. We're actually in the chopper when Colonel Maggie's aide walked up and notified us, "Sergeant Reynolds, all trips to the hospital are currently on hold." I swore, "What the hell is wrong?" He simply said, "They've initiated the MOPP protocol at the hospital." I will inform you when your flight is rescheduled. I looked at Todd and said, well, I guess we sit on our butts until we find out what's going on. Todd showed he at least knew something about being a Marine when he asked, Sergeant Reynolds, isn't that for gas or nuclear attacks? I replied as I worried about Ben, that's right. That's why we're staying here. What the hell was going on at that hospital? Flashback, Jennifer at home. I continued reading the book, which was a reverse chronological order of the history of the dead witches in our family and how they died. It seemed that when they were discovered to be witches, they didn't live very long. Most were hanged at Proctor's Ledge at the bottom of Gallows Hill, set on fire or drowned. All deaths were quite gruesome. It gave me concern about Mother telling everyone under the sun that grandmother and I were witches. The only good thing was hardly anyone believed in witches anymore. And it wasn't like any of my deceased relatives did anything that bad. They mainly healed people when there wasn't any other hope for healing. None of them were evil or in the slightest deserved the deaths they were given. I put the book away and began to think that it might not be as much fun being a witch as I thought. I decided to skip the part about the relatives for now because it was depressing me. I went back to look at the spells I could cast. Okay, I was really looking for a spell to make Ben fall madly in love with me. Of course there wasn't a spell for that. Rats. Grandmother popped into the room and said, Jennifer, good witches would never use a spell to make someone fall in love with them. But you won't have to worry about Ben because when the time is correct, you two will fall madly in love with each other. I asked, how do you know? Grandmother grabbed my face and said, no man in their right mind could resist my granddaughter. But I caution to you, guard your heart against other temptations that will come. I wanted to ask her what she meant when she disappeared. There was a knock on the door. I hid the book and asked, who is it? Daniela answered, Senorita Jennifer, I have some clean clothes for you. I got off my bed, unlocked the door, and Daniela asked, Senorita Jennifer, why did you lock the door? I smiled at Daniela and lied. So many people walked into my room in the hospital. I just wanted some privacy. Daniela understood. Dios mío, you are correct. But worse than everyone thinking they can walk into your room is the terrible gown they make you wear. I giggled and said, next time you're in the hospital, remember that you can ask for scrubs like the doctors and nurses wear. Daniela smiled and said, thank you, Senorita Jennifer, I will remember that. It is good that you're back home. I can't wait for Senora Donaldson to come home. I agreed. Yes, it will be good when Mother comes home. However, I am concerned we will have a few fights when she does. Daniela wisely commented, yes, it will be about the ballet dancing. Senorita Jennifer, you cannot let your mother control your life, or you will be miserable. I asked, did that happen to you, Daniela? She answered, Senorita Jennifer, it is not nice to say bad things about the dead, but my mother did stop my one chance for happiness in my life. I met a young boy. We were in love and wanted to get married, but my mother wouldn't let me. Daniela was almost crying, so I tried to cheer her up. Daniela, it might not be too late. I remember Jed looked at you in a certain way. Daniela interrupted. Senorita Jennifer, that would be wishful thinking on my part. Look at me. I am old and have gained weight. I countered. It didn't seem to bother him any. And if you worked on it, you could lose weight. Daniela replied, Senorita Jennifer, I have tried diets, but I'm always hungry. I replied, so don't diet. Just make less food and get more exercise. Daniela smiled and said, thank you, Senorita Jennifer. You have made me feel better, but I have more work to do today. Flashback. Alexei, at the laboratory. When we walked into the laboratory, it was shocking. The place was a total disaster. There was blood, broken glass, and bodies everywhere. Father said, Alexei, please go back to the car. I rebelled and said, no, I want to see Mother. I was concerned that she was dead too. I dashed to her room as Father chased me and yelled, Alexei, get back here. I made it to the room, and it was even worse than the rest of the laboratory. Mother was in her bed, and around her on the bed were the heads of several orderlies, and even the psychologist. Father grabbed my hand and said, Alexei, run. We ran down the hallway while Mother chased us as she yelled, come back, you too. I need fix you like I fixed the others. We made it outside, and Father swore, Alexei, we are never coming back here again. I began to cry and agreed, yes, Father. I never want to come to this evil place again. Flashback. Ira and Mira, continuing. I came up with an excellent plan for the cannabis, looked at Mira and suggested, if we traversed back to the previous site of our enemies, we could acquire some of the vodka they left. Mira interrupted. Sister, you must cease this constant desire to become dipsomaniac. I swore, Mira. Do not interrupt me again, or I will trounce you. If we acquire several bottles of the vodka, we can lace them with the cannabis and return them to the site. When Costia's men find them, they will surely partake generously of them. Mira smiled and replied, Sister, I apologize for the interruption. Your plan is a genius of stroke. We traversed back to the camping site, found several bottles of vodka, and took them back to our cave. We then wrapped a large amount of the cannabis in a piece of cloth and placed it in the first bottle. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. We were able to get money out of an ATM machine so Maria and Gail didn't have to go into the bank. From what Roberto said, shopping for the furniture was almost as bad as when he shopped for clothes. I thought we would go to a one-stop furniture store, but I guess it was sort of a place that sold furniture which was made by the workers manning the booths. They barked at us to come and see their furniture and how much better it was than the practically identical furniture in the adjacent booth. I wanted something simple and practical for my master bedroom. But Maria had other plans, and from the looks she gave me I was sure it was because she planned on spending most nights in the master bedroom with me. Gail, on the other hand, wanted everything to be pink. And not a nice pastel pink, but a garish pink that practically hurt my eyes. We finally settled on the furniture Maria and Gail wanted, and then the fun of the negotiation began, because in this country you never paid the first price quoted for anything. I looked at Roberto and signed. I could us a cup of coffee. Maria translated, and Roberto and I left. Roberto looked up and down the street and swore, "Todd, there's no place here I would trust to serve you coffee. If you drank their coffee, you would get sick." I pulled out my pad and wrote, "Roberto, don't worry. I just wanted to get out of the place. It was driving me crazy." He laughed and said, "This was only about half as bad as the clothes shopping." That reminded me, so I wrote, "I never did pay you for that." I began to pull out some money, and Roberto said, "Todd, keep your money for now. You might need it for the furniture or the delivery." I wrote, "How are we going to get the furniture delivered?" Roberto pointed to the many trucks outside of the building and said, "After the price is settled on the furniture, Maria will contract one of the trucks to bring the furniture to your house." I looked at the drivers and passengers sitting around the trucks and was sure I didn't want them knowing where we lived. So I wrote, "Roberto, if you know someone with a truck that you trust, I would be willing to pay extra to use them." Roberto replied, "I have some cousins that would be more than happy to help." I shook my head and wrote, "Just how many cousins do you have?" He laughed and replied, "To be truthful, I've never counted them. But you are wise not to let these men see where you, Maria, and Gail live. Let me call them and get them over here. Then we will deal with the problems it will cause." I wrote, "What problems?" Roberto explained, "These drivers feel this is their area, and when my cousins come in, they will try to fight with them. Let me give them a call anyway." I wrote a suggestion, "Why don't we fix the problem now?" Roberto asked, "How should we do that?" I wrote, "Who's the meanest, baddest scumsucker here?" Roberto looked around and pointed him out to me. He was a fat, greasy-looking scumsucker. I smiled at Roberto and motioned for him to follow me. We walked over to him, and he grinned at me, waved his bottle of beer and swore, "Another rich gringo." I smiled at him and flipped him the bird. He slid off the hood of his truck and said, "That's going to cost you, worthless gringo. Hey, Pedro, hold my beer while I kick this gringo's butt." Pedro came over, took his beer, and the scumsucker said, "Now I will whip your skinny gringo butt." As he walked toward me, I waited until he was close enough. Then I kicked his knee, which snapped his leg with a resounding pop. He went down in a pile. Then I walked over and punched him as hard as I could in the face, which knocked his greasy butt out. I looked around at his so-called friends and motioned for them to bring it on. They all held up their hands, which surprised me until I realized Roberto was behind me with his pistol. If I could have laughed, I would have laughed when Pedro finished the beer he was holding for safekeeping despite the threat of violence. Roberto said, "Some of my cousins are coming here to pick up this man's order, and we don't want any trouble when they arrive." The other drivers all replied in the affirmative. Roberto and I walked back inside, and Roberto said, "Todd, you broke his leg." I wrote, "Of course I did. He insulted me." We found Maria and Gail still busily negotiating. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.